Hi everyone, this is another tutorial on the muscles of the shoulder region. So as you know, muscles that act on the shoulder region, they are grouped into three. We have anterior axioappendicular muscles, posterior axioappendicular muscles, and scapulohumeral muscles. So last time we have covered the anterior axioappendicular muscles. So in this tutorial, I'll be covering the posterior axioappendicular muscles. So the posterior axioappendicular muscles, as the name indicates posterior, they lie dorsally in our back, and they run from the axial skeleton to the appendicular skeleton. And since these muscles are found in our back, they are considered as the superficial muscles of the back. And these muscles are arranged in two layers, superficial layer and deep layer. And the superficial layer consists of trapezius muscle and latissimus dorsi muscle. So the superficial layer, it consists of two wide muscles, trapezius and latissimus dorsi muscle. And under trapezius, we have two muscles. We have levator scapulae and we have romboid muscles. So this is levator scapulae and this is romboid. So levator scapulae, romboid, trapezius, and latissimus dorsi muscles, they are posterior axioappendicular muscles, or they are superficial muscles of the back. So first, let's see trapezius muscle. So trapezius is a thin muscle that covers the posterior aspect of our neck and the upper part of our back. So it's a thin, flat muscle, and it covers neck and the upper part of trunk. And trapezius is named based on its shape. It's trapezoidal in shape, or you can see it here. Now let's see its origin and insertion. So trapezius, it originates from the external occipital protuberance, from ligamentum nuchae, and from the spinous process of C7 up to T12. So it has a wide area of origin. And it's inserted into scapula and clavicle. Specifically, it's inserted into the spine and acromion process of the scapula and the lateral third of clavicle. But before we see its action, let's see the arrangement of fibers. So when we see trapezius, as you see it here, it has three groups of fibers. So it has superior fibers, middle, and inferior fibers based on their arrangement. So the superior fibers, they are descending fibers. The fibers descend down. The middle fibers, they are horizontal fibers. The fibers run horizontally. And the inferior fibers, as you see, they ascend. So when we see its action, the descending or the superior fibers, so as you see, based on the orientation, when they contract, they will elevate the scapula, like shrugging our shoulder. And the middle fibers, they run horizontally. So when they contract, they will pull the scapula towards the midline, which means they retract the scapula. And when you see the lower fibers or the inferior fibers or the ascending fibers, when they contract, they will pull the scapula down, which means they depress the scapula. But when all the fibers work together, they will rotate the glenoid cavity. So when all the fibers act, they will act on the physiological scapulothoracic joint, and they will rotate the glenoid cavity superiorly. So this will help us reach above our head. So this will help us comb our head or scratch our head or do something above our head. And trapezius is innervated by the 11th cranial nerve, which is the spinal accessory nerve. So the spinal accessory nerve, in addition to trapezius, it innervates the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So when you see its action, as we see it here, the superior fibers, they elevate the scapula. The inferior fibers, they depress the scapula. And the middle fibers, they retract the scapula. But when all the fibers contract at the same time, they will rotate the glenoid cavity upward. The second muscle is latissimus dorsi muscle. So latissimus dorsi, latissimus means wide, and dorsi, dorsal, it means back. So it's the widest muscle of the back. So as you see it here, it covers a large area. It's the widest muscle. And this muscle originates from the inferior 3 or 4 ribs, the last 3 or 4 ribs, from the spinous process of T7 up to T12, from thoracolumbar fascia, and from iliac crest. So it's a wide muscle, and it originates from here up to here. And the fibers ascend upward, and they are inserted into the intertubercular groove of humerus. So it's a very strong muscle. It's a powerful muscle. So based on the orientation of fibers, when this muscle contracts, it will extend and adduct the humerus. In addition, it medially rotates the humerus. So its action is extension, adduction, and medial rotation. It's a very powerful muscle. And it's innervated by thoracodorsal nerve. So thoracodorsal nerve is a branch from the posterior cord of brachial plexus, and it supplies the latissimus dorsi muscle. So as you see it here, when it contracts, it extends. In addition to extension, it adducts and medially rotates humerus. It's a very strong muscle. So you can see it here. This is latissimus dorsi muscle. It sticks out from the lateral aspect, and it runs from trunk to humerus. So when we are doing pull-ups, so this muscle, the contraction of this muscle, it raises our body up. So it's the main muscle that's used during pull-ups. And we'll be also using this muscle when we are doing some daily chores like chopping a wood, or when we are swimming, we'll be using this muscle. The other muscle is levator scapulae muscle. So levator scapulae muscle, it's a strap-like muscle, and it's completely covered by trapezius muscle. So levator scapulae lies under trapezius muscle. So as you see it here, it originates from the transverse process of C1 up to C4, and it's inserted into the superior angle of the scapula. So as the name indicates, when this muscle contracts, it will elevate the scapula, like shrugging our shoulder. And it's innervated by dorsal scapular nerve. So dorsal scapular is one of the supraclavicular branches of brachial plexus. The last muscle is rhomboid muscle. And we have two rhomboid muscles, rhomboid minor and major. So they are named as minor and major based on their relative size. So major is 2 times wider than minor. And rhomboid muscles are also under trapezius muscle. So as you see it here, if we dissect or if we cut trapezius muscle, we can see rhomboid muscles. So rhomboid minor originates from the spinous process of C7 and T1. But rhomboid major originates from T2 up to T5. And they are inserted into the medial border of the scapula. So based on the orientation of fibers, when this muscle contracts, it will pull the scapula towards the midline or towards the vertebral column, which is retraction of the scapula. So they retract the scapula. And the rhomboid muscles are innervated by dorsal scapular nerve. So both levator scapulae and rhomboid muscles, they are innervated by dorsal scapular nerve. So the posterior axioappendicular muscles are trapezius, latissimus dorsi, levator scapulae, and rhomboid muscles. So that's all about the posterior axioappendicular muscles or the superficial back muscles.